Good morning, and welcome to this week's Monday Musings in the Midwest. I'm Barry Collins, your host. I'm a retired teacher and a retired attorney. As a retired attorney, I'm required to tell you that this show is only for education and information, and we hope a little fun. But we're not creating an attorney-client privilege, nor am I giving legal advice. So let's dive into what I hope is a fairly short show today. I'm getting ready to go on vacation. But the first thing I'd like to say is, can you believe June is almost over and the 4th of July is this weekend? It's a big one, folks. America's 250th celebration of independence. I don't know about you, but there doesn't seem to be the hoopla there was about this one as there was the 200th birthday in 1976. Maybe I'm just missing it. Doesn't really matter. 250 years of democracy is pretty cool. And no matter what you think about politics today, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, no matter if you're happy or disappointed in America, let's celebrate the fact that for 250 years, we've led the world in showing that a people can govern themselves in a manner that gives others a say. I think how far we've come. 250 years ago, they didn't have medicine, they didn't have cars, they didn't have air conditioning, they didn't have refrigerators. The list can go on and on and on. In 250 years, we've come a long way. I now have a car that will flick on a camera immediately when I go into reverse, and that keeps my car in a lane as I'm driving down the road. There's self-driving cars. We've got medicine that's keeping people alive till in their hundreds. Things have changed. Let's celebrate it. No matter what you feel about what's going on in America today, we should be proud of 250 years of democracy. And here, I'll raise my Diet Pepsi to 250 more years, America. Let's keep it going. Happy 250th birthday. I hope you and yours have a safe and happy 4th of July. Well, let's dive into the one case I want to talk about today. Before I talk about it, courts kind of around the 4th of July kind of tend to go dark, take a break. They've gone pretty heavy for 6 months. They take a little break and then they go pretty heavy again until we get into the holiday season and at Thanksgiving and Christmas. The one case I saw this week, and it actually followed a question I had from one of my viewers who wanted to know about gag orders. A judge issues a gag order in a case usually when they're trying to keep the publicity down. Now you say, well, why can't they talk? We have a right to talk. Well, you do have the right to talk. But if you're involved in a court case, the judge can have a gag order. And normally when they do that, it's because it's a sensational trial or there's been publicity or people are angry. They're trying to limit the publicity in a case. In the Tyler Robinson case, who is accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk in a horrific public shooting, the judge issued a gag order. What that he essentially says is parties don't talk, defense don't talk, prosecution don't talk, nobody talks. And in that case, the court's not trying to limit anybody's free speech, but what they are trying to do is make sure that Tyler Robinson, who deserves a fair trial, gets one. And they found that publicity can sometimes what they call taint the jury pool. In other words, the jurors know about the case without hearing the actual evidence in court. And there is a big difference in what you hear on the news and what you see in court. Sorry, there is. So the defense alleged that the prosecution had violated the gag order. Here's what happened. FBI sends the ballistics report back. The fragments of the bullet they recovered, they were fragments, and it's not unusual for for a ballistics report to say something like this one did. Inconclusive. It said a couple of other things, but basically the report said it's inconclusive whether this bullet was fired from that gun. The defense, in a filing in the public docket, filed something that basically said, the FBI said this bullet was not matched to Charlie Kirk's gun, which is a very definitive statement. And the news media picked up on this. Again, this is a big case because it was a very public thing and people were talking about it. Well, the prosecution said, oh, we can't let that go. So the prosecutor went on TV and he made two statements. The first statement was just what I said. The report said it was inconclusive, and it's not unusual for those ballistic reports to say it's inconclusive. That was the first statement. And on a couple of shows, he went a little further and said, the prosecution believes, the state believes, we have more than sufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk. Okay. I'm not going to get in the difference between civil and criminal contempt. That's later down the road if you want it. This was a civil contempt. But what happened was the defense filed a motion and said, find the prosecutor in defense and in contempt and take the death penalty off the table in this case. It's kind of stuff defense does in murder cases, especially death penalty cases a lot. They want that death penalty off the table. Well, the judge said the first statement, clarifying inconclusive, was not contempt. But it was interesting because he said the second statement, when the prosecutor went on and said, we believe we have plenty of evidence to show that Charlie Kirk committed this crime, was contempt. Now, at this point, then, what's the penalty? Well, again, this was a civil contempt. The judge was saying, I made an order, you violated, but it was under your duties as an attorney. It was under your ethical obligation to follow the court's order as an officer of the court. So that's a civil contempt. He said it's not a criminal contempt. Well, think about it. A civil contempt should not impact the penalties in a death penalty case. That's what I believe. And the judge basically said, no, I'm not taking the death penalty off the table in this case. But that's what a gag order is. That's what it does. It's supposed to prevent attorneys from talking. There are things they can do under our ethical laws. You can clarify things. If somebody comes out and there's a blatant misunderstanding in the press or by the public of a statement made, in this case in a court filing, you can clarify it, but don't go too far. Simply stick to the clarification. But that's enough on that. I have a little parenting tip for all of you. I hope you don't mind, but that's what I told you I would do. What I see in children today is the fact that they feel like they have to be entertained all the time. I see parents, the child sitting there and they're shoving a bag of different activities in front. Here, take this, maybe you can find something to do. I'm going to encourage you to stop doing that. Let your child be quote unquote bored once in a while. You know, there are times I like to just sit, look out the back window at my pond, watch the ducks and the geese swim. Your child needs to be able to do that. And think about it. If your child can sit with their own thoughts and be calm and happy, A, they're going to be happier in themselves as a person, but B, when they get back to school, they're not going to feel like they have to be entertained all the time. They're going to be able to sit and wait calmly for a few minutes while another child finishes something. They're going to be able to reflect more on things. They'll probably, a child that can sit and reflect often does better on tests, does better on schoolwork because they're thinking about it. So I'm going to encourage you parents, because we've gotten to a place in America, and perhaps it's around the world, where parents seem to think that every minute of every day the child needs to be doing something. No, they don't. The other day, my grandchild was just sitting on the back step, petting the dog, just sitting there. And it was kind of a neat thing to see. So while this seems like a strange tip, I'm going to say it again. Let there be spaces in your child's life where they're bored. Quit trying to keep them going 24/7. Let them have that time to just be within themselves. Now, how do you do that? Start small. Put them at the kitchen table with crayons and a coloring book if you want to. Yes, that's an activity, but it's a low brain activity. Say you need to do this for 5 minutes. Set a timer if you want to. When the timer goes off, if they're doing well, say, how about another 5? But let your child be bored. Well, folks, 250 years. It's a long time, but not long enough. I'll raise my Diet Pepsi to 250 more years of America. We'll be better. We're always better. We become better every year for 250 years, and we can continue it. Happy 4th of July, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.